Hi everyone, I'm Mary Sia, and this is
Michelle Sia.
and today we are here with Dr. Morgan, the Associate Director and a Professor in the School of Polymer Science and Engineering at the University of Southern Mississippi. Dr. Morgan, we're so honored to have you here today.
Oh, well, thank you, Mary, so much for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Can you talk a little bit about how you got started and what inspired you to go into the field of polymer science and STEM?
Yeah. Well, like the two of you, when I was in high school, I really liked science and math, and I took as many science classes as I could. And I had a lot of people in my family were medical doctors. So when I got ready to go to college, I thought, well, I should try to go to medical school. So I pursued like a pre-med curriculum, and there was a minor in chemistry, and I also did behavioral sciences. And then when I got to be a senior, I started to wonder if I really wanted to go to medical school. So I decided to work for a little while. So I went to work for a neurologist and a psychologist who had an office next to the hospital in Houston. And my job was to go out every day into the hospital and give patients neurological and psychological tests. And after I did that for about a year, I said, well, that's really not my passion to work with patients and go in a hospital. And so I always specifically liked chemistry and engineering, so I started to kind of look around. I took a few more chemistry courses and differential equations and a couple of extra physics courses and things that I thought I needed for grad school. And I found out about this program here in polymer science and engineering. And Dr. Charles McCormick, who is one of the founding members of this school, got me interested in it. And so I decided to come here in graduate school, and I just became fascinated with polymers because polymers just surround us in everyday life. There's so many different applications of them. Our bodies are all made up of polymers, and biopolymers are fascinating. So that's how I got started.
So, what is your area of expertise? Like, what do you mainly do?
Okay, so I'm in polymer science and engineering, so I kind of have two different main paths. One of the areas of research is in biopolymers or bio-inspired polymers, and specifically we are synthesizing glycopolymers, which are synthetic mimics of polysaccharides. And right now we're using those to make biocompatible drug delivery vehicles, and also so they're biocompatible and they are also biodegradable. So that's one area, and we have some other areas in the bio-inspired polymers. And my other area is more in high-performance materials, and that I'm working in nanocomposites, so making strong and lightweight materials for a variety of different applications. One particular application is funded by the Army Corps of Engineers, where we're trying to make new materials that allow us to block electromagnetic interference.
So, being such an influential female figure and like STEM, especially, were there any like gender-related challenges that you faced in the male-dominated field of STEM?
Okay, so STEM is kind of male-dominated, isn't it? So that's kind of the first challenge. So when I was in graduate school, I was the only woman in my class. All the other people in my class were men. So, and then when I got out, I decided first to go into industry. And so polymer science and polymer engineering, and I went to work in General Electric in their polymer, in their plastics. So that was an area that was very male-dominated. So I had to kind of get used to being the only one a lot of times. So go into a meeting, a team meeting, and I might be the only woman there. So I decided after I finished my PhD to go into industry, and I went to GE, and GE was the inventor of polycarbonate. And maybe you've heard about polycarbonate and Lexan, which is used in bulletproof glass. It's used in safety glasses. It was used in the helmets for the astronauts. So it's a very unique, strong, transparent, thermally resistant polymer. And so GE invented that. So that was a great, exciting place to work. And GE also was a pioneer in silicones, which are important materials. So I went to work there, and we were working on engineering thermoplastics. So engineering means they can be used for more high-end and structural applications. So I was working on plastics for automotive, aerospace, medical, medical devices, and electronics. So that's how I got on my one track. When I did my PhD, I was working more in bio-inspired polymers. So that's why I got in both of those areas. And that's how I kept my research going when I came to the university, back to the university. Okay, so then I got into GE, and GE had really great training, leadership training, management training, business training, team training, all this, and I was able to get onto the management track. So I advanced in my career to be a technical manager. And eventually I got to be on the staff of the Vice President of Research for GE Plastics. And guess what? I was the only woman, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I started out, I was one of the few women working as a researcher, and then as I moved up, I became one of the few women in management and fewer women, and then I'm the only woman on the Vice President's staff. And then when I left GE after about 14 years, I kind of, at that point, GE was getting less interested in materials, and in fact, after I left, they sold the plastics division to Saudi Arabian company, to SABIC Innovative Plastics. So I was kind of interested, as the company was getting a little bit less interested in investing in materials. I wanted to do something else, so I thought about coming back to be a professor, and fortunately, Southern Miss allowed me to have a place to come back and start over. So then when I came, I was the first tenure track faculty member, first any kind of faculty member in polymer science and engineering. So I was the first one in the school, and I was the only one for many years until finally, maybe in the last 4 years, we now have 3 other women faculty. So now we have 4 faculty. But I had to be used to being the only woman on the faculty as well, in all the faculty meetings and doing those things. So I just had to learn how to get kind of comfortable doing that and learn how to manage being in that environment.
No matter if you work in industry or in academia, I feel like both sides you can grow yourself, like communication for industry, like communications, communicate with others, and then academia you can work alone, but then you can also like grow yourself as well.
Oh yeah, sure. You're absolutely right. You've got to continue growing in both of those areas.
Yeah.
So in industry, you've got to communicate and be on a team. And actually in academia, it's really hard to do research all by yourself, because all research is building on what came before us. And a lot of the interesting problems right now are really interdisciplinary, so working and collaborating with a team. So you're absolutely right. You have to grow yourself, grow your communication, grow your ability to work with different types of people and different types of disciplines, and learn new areas all the time. That's really exciting also in academia. You're always learning new things.
So what are some tips you have for like collaborating with other people? So like you meant in industry or by yourself, like especially in industry, if you're working towards something and it's not like the type of research you want to do, because like you said, it was for customers and it might not be the research you want to do, how would you adapt to that?
Oh yeah. Well, you have to be motivated and bought in to what the company is doing. Maybe a way to think about it is our job as scientists and engineers is really problem solving. So we're looking at challenges. So whatever kind of problem you have or whatever kind of challenge you have to kind of get into it and start thinking about it and figuring out how to solve it. And so then that becomes rewarding as well. So even though maybe you think you'd like to work in a different area, you need to build up the skills and the knowledge and the capabilities so that you can maybe move in a different direction and pursue that different area eventually. But if you're working for a company and you're being paid, you really need to be working on that bottom line, because that's what you're doing to serve your customers and serve society and serve the company, to solve some kind of problem and make advances in it.
So you started off like that as well, but then you moved up to become a manager. So how was like the transition to become a manager like?
Well, it was really great, and GE had a reputation for doing very good management training. So it was actually very fun. And so you kind of, when you think about a manager, you think, oh, well, I'm controlling all these people and doing that. That's not the way it is. What it really is to be a manager is what you have to do is get the resources for your people so that they can do their best job. So you have to try to hire the best people who are motivated and want to do the job and have the skills, and then you have to create an environment where they can succeed. And you have to learn how to communicate clearly so everybody understands what it is that we're trying to do to get towards that goal. So really it's all about being able to provide the environment for the company to succeed. And it's kind of the same way in the university, in the laboratory. So I have to provide my students with the environment where they can succeed. I've got to make sure we bring in the equipment and the chemicals and all the laboratory supplies, and also give them opportunities for their own growth. So training and internships and all of those kinds of things.
So throughout your whole career, and then you landed as such a successful woman in STEM, so did you have any like role models that helped you out?
That's another good question, yeah. Well, so my first inspiration was my grandmother. So my grandmother, who was probably born maybe right around 1900 in Oklahoma, became one of the first women to be a medical doctor in that state. She went to medical school and became a medical doctor. So she was an inspiration for me. And then she also had 3 children and married my grandfather and had a successful life. And she was, I think that helped me because I was always encouraged and told that I could do whatever I wanted to do, and I was smart enough, and I could compete, and I could learn whatever I wanted to, and that inspired me to have interest in being a scientist. And as a little girl, I liked reading about Madame Curie.
Yes,
I always liked reading about that. And, even there are women that we could see on TV when I was a little kid, like on Star Trek. You could see people being a scientist and astronauts and everything. So I just always felt like it was possible.
That's nice. And then you've mentioned before that you've taught for many years. So throughout these years, what is something that what is a project that you've worked on, or like a research topic that you've worked on that you really liked?
Oh, a research topic?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, well I have so many that I really liked. So one of the ones that I think is pretty exciting, so I collaborate with Dr. Vijay Rangachari in the biochemistry department, and he's an expert in proteins and Alzheimer's disease. So we've been working together to try to understand some of the effects of the environment that might cause Alzheimer's disease.
UV and polymer science, you can collaborate with other professors in different fields and then work on the same project. So you add in 2 different fields of expertise to focus on one project.
Exactly, and that makes it fun.
And,
and exciting.
Yeah, so even if you were in polymer science, you could do something that wasn't polymer science related, but you're doing the polymer science aspect of it, like
exactly.
Project.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
So as I know you had a lot of role models when you were growing up that inspired you to be in the position you were today. But I know right now in school there are a lot of girls like me who we want to go into STEM, but then we feel deterred because of the large gender stereotypes, and we are afraid of being the only girl. So what would you say to encourage us, or what are some words of inspiration?
Well, I think you should just go in there and try it, because there are more and more girls now going into STEM fields. And in college, especially, there are more and more women that are going into all of the fields. So in STEM, in biological sciences, there's almost parity now. And in medical school, there's almost parity, Some of the other fields, there are fewer women. In engineering fields especially, computer science, physics, the physical sciences, math, chemistry, there are fewer. And not all biological sciences, but some biological sciences, there are a lot of women. But you will start to find more. And there are lots and lots of opportunities. So don't tell yourself you can't do it. Just get out there and get some experience and try it.
Well, Dr. Morgan, thank you so much for talking to us today.
You're very welcome.
We learned so much, and we have
you're very welcome.
learned so much from this experience. So
it's very nice to talk to you too. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for